gosh, Marv, it's so weird to think that I met you in my teens and I was asking you for career advice.
You know what, TC? I remember when you did that and you are absolutely slaying, so keep up the good work, girl.
I'm not your average gal, hey, not your average gal, hey, I'm not your average gal.
So what does your job as a TV broadcaster and journalist entail?
When I was a reporter at BBC Radio WM, ITV Central News, BBC Midlands Today, it was very much about being open to what your bosses gave you in terms of stories to go and cover. So there were days when I would be perhaps going to cover breaking news of a big fire at a church. And then there'd be days where I'd be sent out to places like Stoke to cover diet clubs for fat dogs. Of course, you've got to be a good writer, got to be really good with your English, being able to construct sentences well, be hot on your grammar and punctuation. And of course, broadcasting is all about talking. It's all about talking to the camera and not being afraid of talking to the camera, but being prepared or having something prepared to say at all times.
Why did you decide to become involved in TV?
When I was a kid, I was always interested in news because my mum was interested in news. So she always had the evening paper put through the door every night. It was called the Birmingham Mail. Now it's online as Birmingham Live. We'd also watch ITV News, the local news, and the BBC News. So she was always interested in what was going on in the world. So was I. And then as I grew up, I saw Moira Stewart and Sir Trevor MacDonald, the two black newscasters on British television, sitting at the desk, reading the news, and I thought, I quite like the look of that job. I wonder if one day I could do it. So that was always in the back of my mind when I started getting into radio and later on television as well in my 20s.
When did you make a start on your career?
So I did a first degree in business studies at De Montfort University in Leicester, and when I came back home from Leicester I wanted to get involved in hospital radio. So I approached Radio Lollipop, so how old was I, about 22, asking if I could be a volunteer, and that meant that you grew your communication skills because you were given a pen and a pad and you walked around the wards and you spoke to children and families, their parents, their grandparents, asking them if they wanted a record playing on the radio station that was piped through the hospital. So I did that for a good 6 weeks of apprenticeship, going in twice a week after work voluntarily. And I think an opportunity came up maybe 2 months after I was there. So I was asked, do you want to present a show on the station? And then I just kept doing other bits of radio and going, look, I'm doing this at hospital radio. Have a listen to my tape, have a listen to a little snippet of what I'm doing. Do you like it? Could I come and work for you? Whilst I was doing my day job in marketing and advertising and as a secretary, in the weekends, evenings, early mornings, I did all sorts of different bits of radio. So I would go and do live traffic and travel bulletins for an organisation called Traffic Link. I think they're still called Traffic Link, which taught me how to talk to time specifically, like in 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. You would do the bulletins that came on to different BBC stations. I got to work on Kicks 96 radio station in Coventry and Imagine FM in Stockport, so I would do music shows. When I got to my early 30s, I went, let's go and study journalism. Let's go and study how to be a TV and radio reporter.
What top 3 skills do you need to become a TV presenter and journalist?
99.9% of journalists that you see on television, on the BBC News channel, on Sky News, local and national, they have been trained as a journalist, which means they've either done an undergraduate degree, a BA Honours, or they've done a postgraduate year on top of a different degree at some institution somewhere in the world. Speaking to people on the phone or face to face, it doesn't really get the best out of people if you're just messaging them, emailing them, DMing them and not speaking. You don't get the best in terms of quotes and contributions from people. Also, you've got to be a team player. You can't work on your own. Sometimes you work on your own in a newsroom, but other times you're all working together to a common cause. You might be working with your editor to get a story right, and you're bouncing ideas and you're bouncing your copy back and forth to them, and you're taking amendments. So you've got to be a good communicator.
Who helped you?
To get into journalism, I went back to university. I went to Birmingham City University, which incidentally is where I now teach journalism. But I went and studied what was at the time called a postgraduate diploma in broadcast journalism. So without that course, I could never have done everything I've done since. It's given me lots of confidence in terms of me as a journalist, me on camera, me on radio, and the two people who've been instrumental, and I will always be forever grateful in steering me on the right path, are my two lecturers on that course at the time. So Professor Diane Kemp, who teaches on the courses that I teach as well at BCU, and I'm so thrilled, and also Bob Carver, who's now retired, but basically Diane and Bob taught me everything I know.
What's been one of your best career highlights or achievements so far?
When I was at BBC Midlands Today in Birmingham, I got the chance to interview Hollywood A-lister Will Smith. He decided to do a Guinness Book of Records world-beating attempt to do 3 premieres of his romantic comedy film Hitch in one day. So he did a premiere in London, then drove up to Birmingham, did a premiere, and then drove up to Manchester. Heart's beating, he's coming up the red carpet, all these other reporters are in the line from other news outlets across the Midlands. Then he came to me and I made a joke, I quipped, I said something like, oh brother, you're looking so fine. And he went, thank you darling. And he went, mwah, mwah, and gave me a kiss on both cheeks. Have I washed those cheeks since? Going to Sky News from local news at Midlands Today to sitting on the set of Sky News where you are presenting national and international events, which was monumental. So there are loads of big stories that I was part of breaking. Obama becoming president, Mumbai terror attacks, great wins in the Beijing Olympics. 2008, there were loads of wild breaking news stories. The expenses scandal that the Telegraph broke night after night after night. I was holding up the Telegraph newspaper going, look at this, is another exclusive today. I had the best time. And maybe the other highlights are being able to switch from news to lifestyle. I went to QVC, which is a totally different ballgame to news. As part of that then, I got to work with some brilliant women. Lulu, who has her own skincare line that she sells with QVC. Also Dame Joan Collins, who launched her own beauty brand with Q. So I presented several shows with her. I won Journalist of the Year for a documentary I did about black women's mental health called Black Girls Don't Cry for BBC Radio 4.
What advice do you have for young women who aspire to get into TV?
Eat, sleep and breathe TV. That means you need to understand what the TV industry in the UK looks like and really find out by watching television, by looking at the credits at the end, by seeing the name of production companies who make programmes. You should be reading pieces of information from the Royal Television Society, televisual broadcast, to find out who's making what and why. Getting on any introductory insight events, of which there are loads. So it's about having the knowledge.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me in today's Career Corner, Marverine. You are an absolute legend and I hope you know that. Take care.
Well, thanks ever so much for having me, TC. Anyone who wants to maybe ask me any more questions can find me on social at TVMarv. You can track me down there, and you can also look at my website, marverincole.co.uk.
I'm not your average girl. Hey, not your average girl. Hey, I'm not your average